kitty. All right, I'll watch you for a while. That's fine. The next scene we'll be working on for Escape from Maine is jogging in snow. So that says knee-high in snow, yoga, stretch in front yard, logging. Stops to check up on Joe. Logger stops to check up on Jonah. So it's 3 little segments. He goes jogging knee-high snow. He comes back. He does a yoga stretch in the front yard. And then the logger stops to check up on Jonah. Jogging in. That's supposed to be snow right there. Knee-high in snow. Yoga stretch in front yard. Logger stops to check up on Jonah. Did you find her, kitty? And welcome to the Please Subscribe show. I am Cole Spivey, and this is my wife,
Linda Spivey. Hi.
She'll be dropping food at the point of sale system on the counter, and I will be dropping the food at your doorstep. Come along and join us. That would be
Awesome.
great. All right, we're dealing with 171040. And it is March 1, 2023. There is Linda. And I'm Cole.
Probably gonna get in trouble, y'all. Forgot my name tag. I did laundry finally last night. I knew we were doing laundry. You figure I'd leave my name tag in here. For some reason, it's on the dresser. So either go back and be late, get yelled at, go in there and not have a name tag, get yelled at. So either way, I'm getting yelled at. Remember your dirty hands. Please. I'll give you a piece next time. I'll give you a piece next time.
That tastes real good.
How often do you sanitize
What?
your steering wheel? Right, open up. Why are you running behind?
So the next scene I'll be working on in Escape from Maine is when he jogs out in the snow and he sees these moose prints. A logging truck passes him very, very closely, going the opposite way. And then a logger guy stops when he's stretching in the front yard. But he does see, like his father will appear. I'm wanting Alec Baldwin. It could be anybody really, but ideally because of the voice, Alec Baldwin has that voice. He talks about his fatherly voice, or a fatherly voice that keeps visiting him. And it's kind of comical in a way, or it's warm-hearted. And he just kind of appears, kind of Star Wars in a way. He's standing there. Well, you better get some warm boots. That kind of thing. I don't know if Alec Baldwin can do a Southern accent. I'm sure he can. But that's what happens, you know, in the front yard is, or somewhere, you know, there in Parkman, sees him like in the trees, like in hunting gear or something, you know. Because the father, he goes back to revisit the father from the south in his mind while he's up north. So the father appears, well, you better get some warm boots. And he has these things like that he says to him. You know, almost kind of annoying, but a reminder. A fatherly voice is throughout the thing, as well as the digging. Him digging from the neighbor's yard into Stephen King's basement. So anyway, we're working on the jogging sequence. Somewhere in there, we got to put in the fatherly voice, where the father appears almost like a ghost, is what I'll describe it as. Think of Hamlet almost. He sees him. Well, better get some warm boots. I personally haven't met Alec Baldwin. I should have, because of all my connections with the Actor Studio and going to the new school and Actor Studio Drama School. I certainly would have ran into him if I stayed in New York, but he's full of charm. He's just, you know, he's the ideal Irish-English charm. I don't know. I'm sure it's Irish. Just the charm and, you know, the voice. He's one of those actors that has, like, just like Sam Elliott, you know, just has that kind of voice. I always like Alec Baldwin. You know, whenever I went to Wesleyan, Texas Wesleyan, we did Prelude to a Kiss. And I remember, you know, he was in that movie, but it was based on a play. And there was a certain kind of magic to that performance. If you ever see it, it's different than any other romance. It's a very strange movie. But he has a kind of a mystical charm that's different than a lot of... It's a mystical movie. I mean, it's a mystical play. Prelude to a Kiss. So I'm a little under the weather, and I was talking about Escape from Maine. This would be a time where kind of the ghost of his father would appear and say, well, I want to get some ginger root. It's that kind of thing I'm going for. This is lemon ginger right here. It's kind of almost an annoyance, but yet a friendly thing that he needs, you know. So maybe he gets stuck in a snow mound. Did you get some cat litter? If you think of True Romance, what's his name did it? True Romance, yeah. Christian Slater was constantly visited by, I think, a Nicolas Cage, Elvis. Not that bad. It's like a country kind of thing. Not like Rust, but country, like modern country, you know, like Texas guy. So it's like, you know, he's pilling out in the snow on a mound, which will happen in the screenplay. And then all of a sudden he looks to his right, his father's sitting in the passenger side. Well, you might want to buy some cat litter. It's good for the tires to get out. That kind of thing. This really kind of happened to me when I was there. I'm not making this up. I did hear this voice go off in times of need. You know, like one time the battery was dead. It was freezing outside. It was like 7 degrees. You know, you might want to buy a battery. The obvious kind of thing. So, when I wrote the book, I wrote a side poem, something about the Piscatacus River and Piscatacus River and a fatherly voice. I don't know. I might leave that as a poem, but this is kind of ideas riffing off the book. I like this idea of kind of bringing my father's personality in the story, and he always told jokes. So he always tells jokes. So they're usually raunchy jokes. So when a moment happens, and I'm also taking a little bit from Thomas Wolfe, Look Homeward Angel, also known as Oh Lost, when Ben Gant would talk to his brother Grover, always like, ah, can you believe this guy? And he's always talking to a ghost kind of thing. Out of nowhere, in certain moments, maybe the story's going kind of weird direction or whatever, or something happens, he could appear and just tell a joke, you know, and he kind of smiles, that kind of thing. So he still has this like relationship with his father, even though his father's not around. It's very similar to Star Wars, you know, almost exact with Star Wars with Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi. But you know, he appears and to tell a joke. I like that idea. Also, too, when he's in the tunnel and he's already about to tunnel into Stephen King's basement, the father could go there and say, "You really need the story, son. You know, why should one writer hog up all the, you know, the stories? I'm just trying to tell one, you know." I had to break into his basement, you know. I had to steal the glass floor. And it probably means something, because if you read The Glass Floor, the Glass Floor was Stephen King's like first published big story, you know, whatever. But this is only like fantasy or dream sequence, you know, but there's some kind of conversation about it, you know, because he's kind of doing almost in a spiritual way, you know. It's kind of why I included that whole digging sequence. You could explain it to him, you know. I don't know if he mentions Shawshank Redemption or something like that, but, you know, he could explain the plot structure of the story, you know. I need this part of the story. I have to dig here. It keeps the audience interesting, you know, and he could side look at the camera or something, you know. It ties it together. It's a through line of action. I guess so, yeah. I was thinking of a subplot with a horse, you know, or something, you know. Possibly riding out in the evening sun, Cormac McCarthy style, you know, because they're talking about Cormac McCarthy and Stephen King in it. He reads Cormac McCarthy. I know in this part, you know, you get the beginning part, he's reading a poetry of E.E. Cummings, so you get the idea from that moment that he's a reader. You know, he reads things, Jonah, and eventually, you know, you see him reading a copy of these books. Now, in actuality, in the real life situation, I would have been reading off of the HTC Merge, which he could probably do, but I like the idea of him reading a paperback. I did read some paperbacks. You know, I did have a paperback. I had a paperback I had a paperback version of Blood Meridian. And then I think everything else I was reading off the phone. There's some scenes where he's reading Blood Meridian, you know, in a hotel room in Bangor, too. Things like that. You know, when it got too snowy and a blizzard came in. Somewhere in the mix, I do plan for Escape from Maine, the screenplay. Somewhere in there, I want to throw in some Kevin Morby music, because it has that panhandle Texas sound in a very strange place. Kevin Morby, at times, is very strange, and has a kind of a demeanor that fits kind of not the heart of the film, but the spirit of it, you know. The will to continue under strange circumstances. Since I'm talking about Escape from Maine, there's an aspect to it that's hard to describe. Certain things don't fit with Jonah. For example, his writing chair is like a restaurant chair that has like a hole in the center, almost like sitting on a toilet bowl. Now, finally, when he ends up leaving, he throws that restaurant chair down a staircase in front of his stepdad. Whether he's paid by Sam Elliott or Tom Cruise, I really don't care. But yeah, he throws the chair, not too angrily, just, you know, it has rollers on the bottom. You know those chairs at Furr's? Remember Furr's Cafeteria? Exactly the same. That was the chair that he sat on. That was his throne while he wrote most of the book. Now, the desk he used is very, like, just wood, very, not a very big desk, enough to fit the computer only, and barely the keyboard, but old. You could smell the wood, you move it around. Very old desk, you know, dusty. But that restaurant chair was not very comfortable for the 15 months, which he put up with the entire time, like sitting on a thorn, almost like sitting on a commode, writing this thing, you know. Finally, when he decides to leave, you know, that he has to deal with the restaurant chair, and he's at, you know, he's on the second floor. It's like almost like in an attic, almost kind of thing. And he's rolling the restaurant chair to the side of the staircase, and it just goes, flies down the staircase, like all the way down the staircase. Stepdad looks at him really weird, like it's extreme hatred toward this chair. That'll be in the script. He did not like that chair. Also, he does relapse towards the end and starts smoking cigarettes again, which he's on the patio. The spider webs would come in Maine. They arrive everywhere, like a haunted house. These spider webs are all over where the front door entrance is, and he's smoking a cigarette, drinking probably a Nesquik. Very early before the sunrise, always. And then right before he would go snow shovel his way out to go back to the mill. He keeps telling himself, now, there are ghosts in the mill. Other ghosts, other voices, other ghosts. One of them tells him, and the weird thing, this is weird, it's really offshoot, but that he'd never do a talkie. That's what I heard. I don't know what that means. I'll never let you do a talkie. So these ghosts, he doesn't really make sense of. They don't really have like a form. They're more like a voice. Something he sees out of the corner of his eye and then it goes away. Many have said that the mill is haunted in certain areas, that they've seen ghosts late at night. And that's talked about. But they say the weirdest things, you know. They're floating around saying things that don't make a lot of sense. It's not like a ghost, like of his father, which is more of a fatherly voice, which is part of the story. But the ghost will be something like, you know, are you going to choose some of that Big Red, you know, or something weird? And you're like, what? I don't have any Big Red. It's just weird things that went on at the belt. The weird things that he would hear, you know. That was one of them I remember. Something about, I'll never let you do a talkie. Now, there is an area of Maine it's an area where these movie stars would visit. It's kind of like a lake, and it was a hotel that burned down, and Hollywood movie stars would go there back in like the 40s or something, or sometime, I don't remember exactly when, and it did burn down. It was a mountain that was there. I'll have to look it up. It's one of the visiting spots, one of the major spots that you go to. There's a tower, observation tower at the top, and then there's an old burned out hotel. Supposedly the ghosts of these movie stars still hang out there. I want to say it's near the Moosehead Lake, and there's an island. Its observation tower overlooks a burnt out hotel. I'll have to find the name of it. I'll remember it, but it's in the book. If I don't eat right, you know, sometimes, or if I'm tired, I can hear the ringing in my ear from the factory. It's called tinnitus. Some call it tinnitus. Shatner has it from an explosion. A special effects bomb gave it to him. Some actors really do have it. Artist Van Gogh supposedly had it. Different reasons why. I noticed it when I was in the wood mill. It's like consistent ringing out of the right ear. They have a clinic in Irving that's supposed to heal tinnitus. It's somewhat psychological, but I can still hear it at different times. Other times I don't notice it. So anyway, that might be included. That would be included. He starts to hear the ringing in his ear. Jonah does eventually, and he can hear the ringing. Also, I like the idea now when he's in the tunnel and he's digging, he can hear the war above. Oh wow, right over me. So at the time I remember hearing this about the spiritual war. That's where we were headed to. We were at a spiritual war. There was a war of the flesh, all the other wars, all the way from World War I, World War II, going into Korea War, the Vietnam War, all of that, you know, was a fleshy war. But we're going into like a spiritual war, you know. So that's also what it talks about, even though it mentions a civil war too. That there's this sound of the war, that ringing sound, you know, some type of war that he doesn't see. Yet it's there all around him. Doesn't matter where he goes.
Well, you got dirty rugs. You want to call 817-966-2561. 817-966-2561.